I was introduced to the concept of conscious manifestation just before I turned 21, which was a long time ago now. And it wasn't really until I came across a modern interpretation of the law of assumption, albeit a very oversimplified interpretation of the law of assumption that kind of led to physical and mental unwellness and burnout. As someone who still teaches law of assumption, but I do talk about the toxic side of law of assumption on the end card video that I'll put there for you to watch after this. It wasn't until I came across that modern interpretation that things started to click for me. And that was well over a decade after I was first introduced to the idea of conscious manifestation. Now, I'm not saying that the law of attraction is toxic in and of itself, just like law of assumption isn't toxic in and of itself, which is why I still teach law of assumption. But anything taken to an extreme or given in a way that is just too vague can become very toxic. So I'm going to go through the toxic side of law of assumption in this video. But before we begin, hey legends, I'm Cerise. I'm your self-agency and manifestation mentor, and I help you decipher the nuances of conscious manifestation from both the law of assumption and the law of attraction manuals of manifestation, because a lot of information out there is overcomplicated or oversimplified, and I've learned a lot of things the hard way, so you don't have to, because we want to manifest smarter, not harder on this channel. So I think the thing that I found the most frustrating about the law of attraction, the way it is typically taught, is that it gives the impression that you have to be positive all the time. You have to be able to visualize and meditate and get into the frequency and vibration of your manifestation without actually telling you what that is or how to get there. You have to, like, tap your head, rub your belly, lick your elbow, jump on one foot, be positive all at the same time. Otherwise, you can't get your manifestation, right? And I would just constantly find myself wanting to learn about conscious manifestation, finding that all too overwhelming, the way it is kind of said and taught that you have to be positive all the time. And I would put it in the too hard basket. And then I would experience something again that would make me want to live a better life. And I would try to understand it again. And then I would get frustrated and put it in the too hard basket. So let me know below if you resonate with that at all. And if you do get anything positive out of this video overall anyway, don't forget to like, share, comment, and or subscribe. It just helps push my videos out to more people. And if you'd like to comment below to help me with the algorithm, but you don't know what to comment, just put a sparkle emoji, because we're creating literal, real world fucking magic on this channel. It's always a bit of a tongue twister for me to get that round. And eventually that frustration with the law of assumption and the way in which it is taught by most people is what made me kind of throw myself very dogmatically into the law of assumption once I came across the modern interpretation that I spoke about earlier, to the point of completely ignoring my feelings altogether and opting to obsessively and anxiously affirm and script in line with my manifestation, which led to my anxiety gradually getting worse and worse over time, to the point of not realizing that I was in a constant state of survival mode, which led to that physical and mental unwellness and eventually burnout, utter, complete burnout and fatigue that I talk about in the law of assumption video. So what I later learned is that you don't have to feel positive all the time. In fact, you don't have to feel positive at all to manifest in what you want. However, for sustainable, lasting manifestations, for deep rooted, unshakable beliefs, you do need to address the feelings piece of manifestation, because ultimately a belief, a strong belief, a deep rooted belief, is a combination of thoughts and feelings. Because if you're manifesting something you really want, it's something that you have an emotional connection to. So therefore, you do have to address the feeling side of things. But when you solely focus on the feelings piece and you don't address the thoughts piece, this can lead to a lot of hit and miss partial manifestation. But it can also lead to more unfavorable experiences if your nervous system's out of whack, which is your internal compass. It's there to steer you in line with the things that you want to manifest and away from the things that are not part of the most efficient route to them, but to also, in terms of the human experience, keep you safe from true threats to your survival and safety, right? When you have an out of whack nervous system, your internal compass is essentially demagnetized. And so what feels good could really just be you chasing a fleeting dopamine hit, in line with keeping the old story in play, the old versions of things, people, and situations in play. It can also, in a roundabout way, in an unintended way, lead to a lot of toxic positivity, where people pretend that they feel great when they actually don't, when their nervous systems are still completely out of whack, and fake it till you make it from an internal reactive state, right? Because reactions are not always just external reactions like flying off the handle or whatever. Faking it till you make it from that place is forcing, not flowing. And law of attraction talks so much about flow, but then it doesn't teach things in a nuanced enough way to steer people in the direction of how to flow, right? And can lead to people sort of, yeah, forcing, faking, toxic positivity. And the thing is, people still pick up on that. Like science tells us that when you're stressed, when you're anxious, when you're angry, you actually secrete cortisol from your pores into your immediate environment. And then that gets absorbed into the skin of the people around you. And then their internal cortisol levels rise as well. And what that does is either, you know, if you've ever sort of had an argument with someone where you react and then they react and you just keep going up and up, nothing gets resolved. No one's hearing each other in those moments because you're in fight or flight. That can happen, but it could also just show up as someone feeling uneasy around you, not trusting that when you're in that job interview that you're being honest about your experience, when you are being nice to someone who you want to be friends with, that is genuine. Keep in mind, whenever I talk about science or psychology or anything like that, these are just 3D ways in which we're trying to understand something that we that has always existed that we don't have a full comprehension of. Don't get too caught up in those examples, but I do find those things interesting. If you're panicking all the time about like, oh, am I anxious? Then it's not really like, are people absorbing my cortisol right now? Are they not trust me? That's not going to work in your favor, which is just like two reasons really, and addressing the anxiety and reacting that way to incorporate in the nervous system regulation cheat code as well as the other two cheat codes because they all reinforce each other. They work together synergistically. So feel good things, for example, doing things that you enjoy that are unrelated to your manifestation also can have nervous system regulating effects as well as treating yourself how you want to be treated in terms of how I teach self-concept. Yes, do your I am affirmations, but also treating yourself how you want to be treated, just as an example. And I recorded so many videos in advance the other week that I did not take into account that some of those would be released still talking about the waitlist for the Cheat Code Academy and not telling you that it is actually already launched. So the Cheat Code Academy doors are open for a limited time. And because of my little mishap with recording so many videos and not talking in some of those about how the Academy is already launched, I'm extending the founding member discount for those of you who are YouTube viewers only to get 50% off not only your first month, but every month you choose to remain a member. It's grandfathered into the system. So every month you'll only ever be paying half price. So that ends midnight, Friday, the 7th of February, 2025, Australian Eastern Standard Time. We are only on day 4 of a 14-day workshop. I won't always do a 14-day workshop or challenge each month, but because February is Valentine's Day month for a lot of people, keep in mind you can apply this to any day that you build up in your mind to be a big thing that feels big to you, like an interview, a business launch, a product or service launch, a birthday, holidays, whatever day feels big to you, you can apply this workshop to it, and it will be in the Level Up library within the Cheat Code Academy for you to reference whenever you want. But the first 5 days are really just a warm up to get into the real nitty gritty. So you're not too late to join in time for that workshop. And the first Q&A hasn't happened yet at the time of me posting this video. So if you want your questions answered to do with your specific situation, then definitely join ASAP. There will be 4 Q&As a month though, not just one like most memberships. So if you join after this week, you will still have an opportunity to have your questions answered within the month of February. But if you want to only ever pay 50% for your membership, which is like, why would you not? You have to sign up before midnight, Friday, the 7th of February, 2025, Australian Eastern Standard Time, using the code up here, but also in the description below, just to make it easy for you so you can just copy and paste it. You're welcome. So you don't have to feel positive all the time. In fact, you don't have to feel positive at all. But if you want to really create a sustainable manifestation, then addressing the feelings piece is important. You still don't have to feel positive all the time in that instance, but it does help to create that association of feeling good and feeling neutral, like the novelty phase of your manifestation has worn off already, and it's very normal for it to be in your life. So when it does show up, when you do step into the reality where you're presented with it in the physical world, You're not going to be fearful that it's not going to last. You're not going to self-sabotage in any way, push it away, chase it, whatever is your kind of habit in terms of self-sabotaging in the past. Another thing that's really quite heavily spoken about in the Law of Attraction Manual of Manifestation is meditation. Now, I believe that the intention of talking about meditation is that it is a way in which you can regulate your nervous system. But what I found personally was I struggled to meditate when my nervous system was out of whack. So, again, my cheat codes could help you with meditation if that's something that you want to try or get better at. But it's not necessary to manifest. It's not the meditation or the visualizations, which is also something that I found easier when I incorporated in my cheat codes. That includes nervous system regulation. It's not those things. It's not ever the tools or the techniques that are manifesting. It's your subconscious beliefs. But these things are all spoken about in a way to help your subconscious beliefs become stronger, or to create the belief, or to really just not disbelieve that you can have what you want, because you don't have to believe, you just have to not disbelieve, which is another thing that kind of shits me about the law of attraction. They tell you to ask, believe, and receive. So let's get into that one, shall we? Firstly, asking is suggesting that you're not responsible for your experience to some degree, and that something outside of you is judging or determining whether or not you're worthy of, deserving of, or allowed to have what you want, or whether you're ready to have what you want. Now, I have a different understanding of divine timing now than I did back in the day. And when I first came across the law of assumption, where I was like, I can have it right now though. Why would I wait? I would wait because I want to be programmed to be ready to experience my manifestation without self-sabotaging it. Because when that happens and you have to continuously manifest it back in all the time, and then you self-sabotage it, that just reinforces the limiting beliefs more and more, that dam of disbelief that was stopping you from having or holding on to it in the past. But it also throws your nervous system more and more out of whack and makes it harder and harder to manifest in each time, and is more and more defeating each time, and worse for your self-concept each time. So, tangent on divine timing. But in terms of asking, you are choosing what you are worthy of, deserving of, and allowed to have based on what you believe about yourself, your world, and the people in your world. So, I'm all for people feeling comforted by the idea of the universe or God. I have a follower who's followed me for a long time who says that she likes the idea of believing in God because she kind of feels like she has someone like walking through the whole situation with her, and that's comforting to her, and that's fine. My sister's actually a born again Christian as well. So, I'm all for people believing whatever makes them happy that isn't hurting themselves or anyone else. For some people, it's easier to believe if they feel like there's, something out there that has their back, I suppose. And we've heard like the saying, the universe has your back and all that sort of thing. So when you believe that, it's easier for you to believe in yourself. But it's really coming from you. Even if you're praying to God, for example, I have heard Christians talk about, well, it just wasn't in God's plan, or it just wasn't the right time, or whatever. And really what it ultimately comes down to, because you're still asking, so it is still coming from you, right? If you're asking God or the universe, it's still coming from you. What it ultimately comes down to in those instances is you didn't believe enough that it was possible, or you believed more that it was not possible, or you worried more that it was not going to happen. And understandably, when you're going through hardships in the 3D physical world circumstances that are seemingly signifying that you're not experiencing what you want, and your nervous system's out of whack and all of those things, it's not the easiest thing to do to just believe that whether it's you or the God or the universe giving it to you, it's easier to sort of not take responsibility and say, oh, it just wasn't in God's plan. And that can help people move on from things that may have been heavier, that didn't work out because they didn't believe, or they disbelieved too much, right? Because again, you don't have to believe, you just have to not disbelieve. And I totally understand if there's heavy circumstances happening, that believing is going to feel like a hard fucking task. The other part of that is believing, like I said, ask, okay, we've addressed that. Believe, we've also addressed that. You don't have to believe, you just have to not disbelieve. But when you are told that you have to believe, that can feel so overwhelming that you just put it in the too hard basket, right? And then receive, ask, believe, receive. You're not really receiving anything, even though I do say like the moment of receiving your manifestation or whatever. You're not really being given anything again from anything outside of you. You are a living projector. Life is coming from you, it's not happening to you. So, what you're really doing is you're choosing the experience that you want to have. And then you're allowing yourself to have it. You're not fighting anything. Ultimately, God, universe, source, energy, higher self, it's all just energy. That's all it is. They're just different names for energy. You are the universe. You are the universe experiencing itself. If you've never seen there's a free video on YouTube called The Egg. It's an animation. So when you feel like you have to be perfect all the time, when you feel like things are kind of out of your hands, even though I'm not encouraging trying to control things, right? Manifestation is about flow, not force. But whenever you kind of get extreme on in any of the manuals of manifestation, whether it be law of attraction or law of assumption, you inadvertently start to try to force things. And whilst that can yield results, they will not be sustainable results. The lighting is all over the place in this video because the sun is in and out of the clouds, and I've got a ring light on today, so we're just rocking with it. Another thing that's said a lot within law of attraction is this or something better, right? Now, let's talk about this. Things happen via the path of least resistance. So, what that can mean is when you're working on your self concept and it's improving, and the original version of something, someone, or a situation hasn't met you at that level yet, you're likely going to come across people who are at that level of your new level of improved self concept first. Not always, but it can happen. It can happen often. If you choose in that moment to continue to stay with the second person that shows up in a romantic situation, for example, by the time original SP meets you at that level of self concept, there's nothing wrong with that, right? I don't really like that there's law of assumption coaches out there saying, well, you were just giving up then, like it's very toxic. It's ultimately your choice. But the thing is, if you're solely doing your I am affirmations for your self concept, and that's enough to bring in even like the full baked version of SP that you want, original SP, or just someone else who's showing up with all the characteristics and attributes and ways of treating you and mannerisms and whatever that you're wanting in original SP. And they're coming in with that, and there's no opposing story about that person. So that kind of comes across as better because you don't have the opposing unfavorable story about them like you did original SP. If you don't do any nervous system regulation work, you don't focus on the feelings piece, you don't have other things going on in your life that you enjoy, aka the feel good things cheat code, and treat yourself how you want to be treated, aka the self concept cheat code, the way I teach it, you are then going to put all the pressure on this new person or self sabotage in some other way, but put all the pressure on this new person to be your sole source of happiness and fulfillment, and self sabotage it in a similar way to what you did with previous people. And in that sense, saying this or something better doesn't really tell you that it's going to not be a sustainable manifestation if you don't do that work, right? So simply just not working on any mindset piece, solely going off like what feels good, which could be just chasing fleeting dopamine hits, like I think I said earlier, but also not addressing the beliefs, the thought piece of the belief systems, what you think about yourself, your world, and the people in it, whether it's groups of people like all men or all women, for example, or all corporate situations, if it's a job situation, whatever it might be, then the same behaviors that led to pushing away the original thing, personal situation that you wanted will come up again. I did this, I went through this cycle with friends. Like I had the same situations come up with friends many times before I came to understand all of this and realize like, oh fuck. I cut them off because it got toxic, but I was actually like entertaining a version of them that wasn't what I wanted. And it would start off really good and they'd be really good friends initially, but then they'd become kind of slack. But that was on me. So yeah, I feel like that's not really addressed very well or at all with the saying of this or something better. The internal work is still necessary. The working on the nervous system is still necessary. And I don't personally feel like meditation is the most efficient way to do that, even though meditation isn't really specifically spoken about within the law of attraction. Not that I've heard anyway. You can definitely let me know in the comments below if you've heard it spoken about as a way of regulating your nervous system. But for me, it's not the most efficient way to regulate your nervous system from my personal experience. But different things work for different people. So it is about finding what works best for you. I had someone comment recently on a video about how they did like EFT, an EFT course, spent heaps of money or something on it, and it didn't work for them. If something's not working after a few weeks time, you're not feeling any improvement, then it's time to try something new and find what does work for you, and there will be something. And there's so many ways of regulating your nervous system. So as with the toxic side of law of assumption video, I'm not shitting on law of attraction. I teach both the law of assumption and the law of attraction. I just teach them in a more balanced way as opposed to the dogmatic way that a lot of people tend to end up being steered in somehow, some way. By with law of attraction, I feel the lack of detail and the vagueness in which it is talked about. And with law of assumption, the heavy emphasis on the thoughts piece, when in fact your thoughts and your feelings are just telling you where your existing belief systems are.